Good evening and welcome to this edition of FCA Fellowship of Christian Athletes Coaches Corner. Before I introduce our guests and get started tonight, just wanted to start off like I always do. It was Billy Graham that said one coach can impact more young people in 1 year than most people can in an entire lifetime. And that is so true. Two most important words on any campus in America, any playground, any rec league, any gym, our coach said. And at Fellowship of Christian Athletes, we take that very seriously. And we want to make sure Coach said is impactful to youth all around the country. And tonight, we have a coach here, Coach Jeff Frady, the head football coach at ENKA High School. And Coach said means some wonderful things at the campus of ENKA High School. Kids are lucky to play for a man of God like this. And we're just tickled to have him on here. Coach, a welcome tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm excited to be here.
Hey, before we get going into this thing, hey, talk about your family a little bit. Introduce us. Talk about your family a little bit and kind of why you got into coaching.
Well, I'm been married for 18 years now. I screw that up a lot. Forget my anniversary sometimes, get in trouble. I've been bad during my lifetime to schedule football events in the summer on my anniversary, and that's never a good thing either. But I have a beautiful wife, Casey. We have 4 girls. Josie, who's a junior in high school. Kennedy's a freshman, so I got two girls in high school. I got a 6th grader, Lila, and I've got young Lainey, who is a 2nd grader.
Man, so you are one busy fella. I thought I was busy with one kid. So wow.
I am. I tell you that the COVID time has been a blessing in that aspect. You know, I taught and coached in Henderson County from 2000 to 2012, and had a wonderful time out there. I'm sure we'll talk some of the memories that I had out there in Henderson County. But the only bad thing was, especially during football season, especially when I was at East, we'd meet on Saturdays. So I'd spend the night at school. There's no use in coming home. I'd spend the night from Thursday night and come home Saturday afternoon. So I don't know that I was as good of a daddy as I should have been, you know, during those years. So it's been nice over the last 8 years to be back at home, even though we're incredibly busy, you know, not so much this year, but it's given me a chance to help out a lot. I told my wife the other day that I don't know how she does. I'll get home right now. She gets off at 5. So those 3 weeks, especially when we weren't able to lift and stuff after school, I'd get the kids home and I'm trying to cook dinner and I'm so stressed out. And it gives us a different light on what our wives do for sure.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I was the youngest of 4 boys and my dad coached. So my mom taught school too. So the stuff I would watch them pull off and how they would get things done, it's almost a miracle watching a family like that. So I can relate to that, having 4 kids, and oh man, that's a trooper. And you're right. Behind every great coach, there's a wonderful wife sitting there, like you said earlier. You know, when you were in Henderson County, my nephew, my wife's little brother, Ben Marlowe, he lives in Raleigh now, but boy, he didn't harp and talk about a lot of his coaches. But man, you talk about I bring up your name, and I told him I was doing this tonight. And I mean, he loved you when he played for you. And I mean, he just lit up when he heard that I was going to be talking about you tonight. So yeah,
we had a lot of fun. You know, Ben was on a pretty good baseball team. There was a lot of good talent there. That's how I ended up in Henderson County. I was coaching Legion, just graduated from college at Montreat, and coaching American Legion in Buncombe County. And met Scott Rhodes through Legion there, and ended up going out there and working at North Henderson under Charles Thomas during that time, and coached football as well. Coached for Matt Cumbo. We were talking before then. I learned a lot of good things from Matt. Mac's a good dude. He was a lot of fun, and he'd break it down on things like hot dog world and stuff like that, and kids loved playing for him. And but got into the baseball world out there, and baseball is a different animal in Henderson County for sure. You know, it's a lot different than a lot of other places in West North Carolina. It's pretty special, and was able to coach some really good teams there. Ben played on those teams, and we had a lot of fun. You know, I can remember and those boys were always in shenanigans too. You know, Scott was, you know, I was young, just out of college, so I'd stay after, and we'd hit for hours. It seemed like after practice. Sometimes I wasn't much older than a lot of them boys that were there, so we probably did some things we probably shouldn't have at the time. So.
Oh yeah, well, you talk about good players. The one I remember, I mean, he was good at everything. Seth Williams, goodness.
Absolutely, Seth Williams, Seth Baldwin, both those kids played at Carolina. Incredible players.
Oh yeah, that answers one of my questions later. Some of those great players, but I know Seth was around being some, and I always tease, and no offense to any coach or anything, but we played North one year. About the best year I ever had was 03. And we were like, now they're going to get that ball to Seth Williams. We planned all week. Seth Williams, Seth Williams. They split him up. Man, his boy didn't touch the ball. And we barely won. We went 14-1 that year. And our closest game to the fourth round was North. And it was at our place. And they had us beat.
I guess Jeff Bailey was there at the time.
Yep. My buddy.
Running split back beer then.
Yep. And, oh, man, I mean, we were just waiting. We had a man and a half over Seth where they're going to throw this guy the ball. Nobody can jump with him. Nobody can run with him. But Lord was good to us that night. They didn't use him a whole lot. So we were glad about that. And then you were at East Henderson for a while, and you got to see some of the craziness when a Brett Chappell, B.J. Lauder football game takes place once a year. Talk about that rivalry.
Let me tell you something. It was a lot of fun. It was a great rivalry. Something we look forward to every year. And you and I have talked a lot in recent years about how it's a lot of back and forth. You know, it was, but, you know, you talk about, and we coached some great players, both of us during those years, and some unbelievable talent, and had some great ball games. But it's some of the other memories that you don't even you talked about during your retirement, and when you go sit down with kids, a lot of times they don't talk about games. And I was telling you when we had the FCA event, I'm always getting on Coach Chappell about this one, but we decided that we were going to warm up one time, come over to Hendersonville. And we weren't going to show up until it's kickoff time. And everybody's kind of wondering what was going on. We didn't tell anybody. We rolled into the gates over there at Deets Field over there, and y'all rolled the barrels out on us that night. So,
yeah, I remember that. Our kids were like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know, guys, but we warm up on the whole field. You know, we stretched out. I tried to downplay it because our kids were kind of worried. They were like, where's the East today? I was like, guys, don't worry about it. If there was trouble, somebody would let us know. They're probably doing some kind of pregame stunt. You know, they were going to probably roll in here, fire it up, just jump off the bus, flip the coin, which ended up being that. But it was hard to get my kids calmed down because they were worried about that. You know, they wanted to like mean mug each other across the field, and you guys weren't there for that, which was kind of brilliant by you guys because you took that aspect of the game out of it. You know, we're having a home game. We're wanting to kind of do the intimidation thing and watch y'all walk up the steps, and our kids, you know, trying to act bad and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was hilarious. And then we played y'all one time at East, and man, I never seen so many Harley Davidson motorcycles. So
yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool, man.
That was the first time we did that, and we ended up doing it a couple more times. But that sent chills through your spine listening to that stuff out through there.
It did. We lucked out in that game too. I remember I had a kid run the opening kickoff back, and the motorcycles kind of got a little quieter, you know. So I thank God, because there ain't no telling what would have happened if not. But yeah, that's fun stuff, and we had a blast when you were in Henderson County, and I know a lot of people miss having you in this county. You're well thought of here, and I want to ask you this. You know, I talked to a lot of coaches, and you got people like David Gentry that have all those wins, and I know it's fun to win, and I like to win my share as much as anybody else. But what is a win for you, Coach? I know you coach for some different reasons than the ordinary. Kind of like me, there were different. I coached for some different reasons, and we're going to get into some of that here in a minute.
Well, Coach, I've been on both ends of it. You know, I think that, you know, as Henderson County was able to be on, you know, whether it was at North or as we talked about before, I was at North when they won their only conference championship in football my first year. Fortunate enough to do that. And there's a lot of coaches go their whole career and never win a conference championship in football. And I've been a part of a lot of them, not so much where I am now, you know. And I knew, people ask me all the time, I knew what I was getting into when I come home. Let me tell you something. Like, you asked me what my greatest coaching memory is, and I've had some special memories, whether it be playing in state semifinals and stuff like that. But the first time that I walked up the steps when I was the head coach at ENKA High School, just remember the emotional feeling of it. It's a special place. It really is. It's a community that's very supportive. We talked about how tonight I just got back from a fundraiser. A guy in the community gave our football boosters club a couple $1,000 to basically come seed his yard tonight, just to help out our boosters and stuff. And we've had families over here, the Ferguson family, that's bought us like 150 helmets in the last 5 years or so. But I have learned to coach for different reasons. You know, it's a different it is a different situation where I am, you know, and I want so bad, you know, I was a year removed. My brother was on the last winning season at ENKA High School. It's probably been 24 years now. And before that, it was me in 96. So, or 95. And then the last winning season was 97, whatever the math is on that. And I want so badly for our kids to experience that as well. And we're working from a continuity standpoint, but we're also offering our kids a chance at eternal life too. We try to expose them, you know, through FCA partners with us a lot, and then we'll get more into what FCA has done for me in my career in a little bit, I'm sure. But I've learned to coach for different reasons. I guess you could say I do it for the kids. You know, I've dealt with 2 deaths of students, and I know you've been through that, and I've dealt with that since I was at ENKA, and I really feel like that God put me there to bring us through some of the adversity that I've faced or that we have faced together while I've been there. You know, it's not fun to lose sometimes, you know, and I've been on that end of it plenty. You know, I've been on both ends of it in my career, like I said, but you realize that you're doing it, you know, to try to teach young men, because a lot of the kids we coach, and you know this, as years go on, the family structures change so much for many of our kids, and just to be able to go out and mentor young men and mold them into men and to be good daddies. At the end of the day, I just want our kids to be good daddies and good productive members of society when they leave ENKA High School.
So I would say that's about what I thought you would say is a win. You know, I used to say it, and I copied some coach. You know, they say, "Coach, how's your team doing?" Similar to you. Well, I don't know yet. Give me 20 years. Let's see how they turn out. You know, are they productive? Are they going to be good, strong Christian men and their families and be there for their kids? Yeah, absolutely.
That is the different part now, being in your hometown where everybody knows you, and you've been there too. You know, it's tough to go eat at restaurants sometimes, or go in the grocery store or whatever. These people want to talk, and it's nice to live in a place that's passionate about stuff, for sure. I'm missing it for sure this fall.
Oh yeah. And you talk about ties to ENKA. I have a huge tie there. My mom graduated. It wasn't ENKA then. She graduated from Sand Hill High School.
Wow.
She went to high school and Joe Gibbs was there.
Wow.
So that's crazy. Back in the day, she graduated in 53. But yeah, she was a Sand Hill. My grandma, her mom worked at the ENKA plant for 35, 40 years. So small world when you start looking. Like last week with Coach Wilbanks, you know, his wife's family lives just right down the road from me. And that was neat. And he actually spends the night sometimes with Don Dalton and his wife, who hired me. So yeah, you didn't know, I didn't know any of that until you start interviewing somebody. But you know, we talked about your greatest coaching member. We talked about some of those great players like Seth Ball and Seth Williams. Anybody else you want to mention? Some of your great players you've coached?
Michael
Ingram. Shout out to
Michael Ingram. That dude's a pretty special player now.
Yeah, I got
we had 3 2,000-yard rushers when I was at East. We had Michael Ingram, who went on and played at Mars Hill, who coaches at East now. Special young man, quiet kid. You know, we had Michael Ingram, who was like a kid that would either juke you or run you over. I mean, I've seen that kid do some special things. Great defensive player as well. And then Shaq Davis went on and played at Mars Hill. He was a special player as well. And you know, my last year there, Seth Owens and Stephon Hill and Tyler Sexton, and I could go on and on and on. That last year when I was at East, I don't know that anybody that was on that staff, whether it be Brett Chappell or whoever, will never coach an offense as great as that one was. I mean, it didn't matter what we wanted to do. I remember going to the playoffs. We're a spread team. We're chunking all over the place, and Seth threw it for 2,500 yards. We go to the first round of the playoff, and we get in a – Jeff Floyd called it a Tarzan and said, well, we're in a pro formation. We're unbalanced over there and got two fullbacks, and we rushed for 700 and some yards against the team and threw it 3 times. You know, so these kids were pretty special, and they could do a lot of different things.
Oh, yeah, that team, Stephon Hill's dad graduated high school with me.
Boogie.
Yeah, Boogie. And then y'all had a kid on that team, Rakim Waters. His dad went to school with me. And Tyler Sexton, it's funny, the year I coached, I can't remember what year he graduated, but I think that year we were trying to get a tight end in the Shrine Bowl, and I kept trying to get that kid. I thought he was wonderful, and they just thought he was too small, skinny-wise, because they were wanting to do some type of blocking thing. And he was. Yeah, you mentioned some great players right there, and they were talented. As good as East was, since they had Tiger Green and Roger Case in that crowd back in the 70s. So, yeah, those are good stuff. Now, let's switch gears a little bit, Coach. You talked about FCA being a big part of your program and Christ being a big impact in your life and on your coaching. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I could go way back. You know, I've known Steve McNamara since college. You know, I always tell people, you know, if they got problems with my coaching style or me as a coach, that they can go blame it on Steve McNamara, because I took coaching 101 with him in college when he was at Montreat College, the AD out there and basketball coach. But he got involved with FCA, and I can remember him being around when I was at North, and then really got him involved. We started doing a players coaches Bible study, and I can remember a couple different instances there. I had a Thomas Waddell, another fantastic football player that we had for us, and his sister played at North, Annie Pearl. I'm sure you know her, but Thomas's grandmother died. You know, and that was, you know, the person that raised him, and I had to go sit there and tell him, and I called Steve, and Steve went and we sat down with Wally, who he was living with, Wally Sneed at the time, and sat down and told Thomas that his grandmother had died, and Steve was right there for that. And I can tell you about we had a coach who had a child die during birth. During that time, Russ DeLoach and Steve, you know, organized a funeral to go help out in that situation. And I know that, you know, when we had the 2 kids that died in car accidents when I was at ENKA, Steve was the first person there. And since FCA come along, you know, especially when I've been at East and ENKA, and now Danny Wilkins being around every week. And, you know, I think some people just think that FCA is a club that you have at school, and maybe they might provide team meals for football, but it's so much more than that. You know, I think that I can remember both instances when we had the 2 kids die in a car wreck, Steve showing up that morning, and other local youth pastors that you know, partnered with Steve and helping feed meals and this and that. And those are the people that our kids connected with because they were there with them all the time. Our county sent out grief counselors, and our kids really wouldn't, they didn't connect with them because they didn't have a relationship with them. You talked about this coaching, and what you're doing now is all about trying to develop relationships. You talked about going down to North Henderson, trying to get to know some of those kids. Like, the only way that we can impact kids' lives is to get to know them and show kids that we care about them. And if they know that we care about them, then we can do a lot more than that than what we know with their X's and O's. So, I mean, I could go, you know, those guys begged me to go to FCA camp for years, and I didn't go. And then we ended up going the last 2 previous years of this. And what an amazing experience that is, to take your kids to FCA camp down at Lenore Ryan, doing that. And I could go on and on and on what FCA does. We do a coach's Bible study every week that Danny does, comes in and does with us. And we've done 3D coaching and stuff like that. So I can't say enough about FCA and what they do for student athletes in West North Carolina.
I appreciate that. And that's a big reason I got into FCA. When Steve first came to the area, I did what my coaches did. We weren't having pregame meals or anything like that or any kind of devotions. Not that I didn't want to. I just did what I was taught. And he was the one guy that started churches coming in and helping us with pregame meals. And we started having team talks, which are our devotions. And, the next thing you know, I've got kids like Grant Rivers leading Bible studies, the kids doing it. So, yeah, it's huge. That's why I got in. Steve has done a lot for Western North Carolina and Danny as well. So, yeah, thank you for the kind words. And it's funny you mentioned 3D coaching. I've got the website behind me here, the FCA Coaches Academy, where any coach can, and you don't have to be a coach, but it's a chunk of time, but it's well worth it.
From a leadership standpoint, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I took it, but I'm done coaching. So I'm going, gosh, where was this 30 years ago when I got into coaching? I look back on situations I could have handled a lot different because it talks about coaching the mind and the heart. Anybody can learn the X's and O's, but that's what's so wonderful about the 3D coaching. But anybody watching this, you go to this website, it's free. It actually gives you a little quiz at the end of each section, makes you pay attention, and it's well worth it. It's nothing. It costs nothing. So that took my plug here at the end, Coach. I appreciate that. Hey, switching gears again, we've probably got parents of kids that play high school sports on here, or middle school, or club, or whatever. We've got young kids that are probably not watching it right now. Maybe they are, or they're going to watch it later when I load it to YouTube. But what advice do you want to give these parents, or a young coach, or an athlete that's watching this, Coach? Speak to them.
Well, to a young coach, I'd want to say a lot of people want to come in and they want this instant self-gratification stuff. And you and we were talking beforehand. One of the biggest things that I learned when I first got into coaching was being just a JV coach or whatever. You talked about coaching junior high basketball. You learn how to coach by doing a lot of stuff on your own and having a lot of responsibility and stuff like that. And put the time in and grind. You got to go put the time in and study and care about kids and stuff like that. To young kids, I was talking to my nephew 2 days ago. We were riding out to a wedding. My brother-in-law played at Georgia Southern baseball down there, and he's got a son that is in sports now. And so many kids, once again, want this self-gratification and stuff like that, and they want all these accolades and they want to go get a college scholarship. And I asked him, what do you want to accomplish? I think any young player's got to ask themselves what they want to accomplish. I mean, if you want to try to get a college scholarship, then you got to put some time in on your own. That's what I was trying to tell him. They got a batting cage at his house. I said, if you want to be successful, if you want to just go play sport for fun and enjoy it, then you don't necessarily need to work as hard, go to the practices, work hard, compete and stuff like that. But if you want to go to the next level, you got to put the work in. You got to put the work in on your own as well. You got to be a student of the game. You got to be willing to be coachable. I think that, sometimes kids will come in and they know a whole lot now. Like, be a good listener. We need to do that as coaches as well, and be able to admit when you make mistakes. Like, we have to do that as coaches too. I think when I first started coaching, you were never wrong. And there's not hardly a day that goes by now that I don't screw up and tell a kid I'm sorry. I think that's very important. To parents, I want to tell you guys that, I think one of the biggest issues in our society now is specialization in sport. I think I'm not a huge fan sometimes of some of I think that the AAU world and the travel world has its purpose, but I think that at the end of the day, when you get into specialization, especially when you get into high school, I know so many kids. I know that Jennifer Crook's going to be in here in a couple weeks talking to you, our softball coach, and she can tell you, as she won a couple of the state championships and stuff, that I know so many kids that play some of this stuff, and they play so much of it that they hate it at the end of the day. You know, I want kids to have positive experiences with stuff. And like I said, I'm not saying not to do any of this stuff, but I'm just saying to be careful and allow your kids to do other things, you know, rather than trying to push somebody to something that maybe you want them to do or whatever. Let kids have fun. Like you said earlier, you talked about Coach Wilbank saying, like, let your kids make mistakes. That is important, you know, like not everything in life's going to be roses. If there's one thing I've learned being the head football coach at ENKA High School, it's that, you know, you ain't gonna go in every Friday night and things are gonna be hunky dory at the end of the night. You know, I think that you gotta learn why you're doing something. You know, like you gotta to go out and work hard for it, but don't overdo it too. You know, be careful with that stuff. Be careful with your kids' parents. You know, and there's a lot of that stuff where you're taking away from family time stuff, and that kid's identities rolled up in that whole situation. That's not ever a good thing either.
Oh yeah, that's great advice. I know when I played everything. I played football, basketball, baseball in high school, and if I would have, looking back, I would have missed it so much if I would have just zoomed in on one like that. So,
and like I said, I'm not trashing that stuff. It's all about
not at all.
Stuff. But I don't. I was telling Danny asked us a good question last week in our coach's Bible study. He was talking about how, you know, he was talking about your identity and stuff like that. And I read a good book. My father-in-law is a pastor at Pole Creek Baptist, and we did a book study a few years ago, and one of the monthly books was on identity and how many of us, when we want to identify ourselves as the head football coach at ENKA High School or Hendersonville, or I'm the principal at Bruce Drysdale or whatever, people ask you, you know, about who you are, and that's what we identify. Rather than being Christ followers, that's what we identify, and that's what we should be all about, you know, and all of us forget that sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an excellent point. You know, I just heard something Sunday about that. Stanley Ann, the preacher I listen to a lot, he talked about not putting those idols, you know, above God. Just put them right under God. You know, he talked about you go to a stadium to watch Clemson play and it's pouring the rain, but you won't get up and go to church, you know, that type of thing.
Let me tell you something, nothing replaces Friday night football. For sure now.
Not at all. So yeah, I do miss that part of it. Well, hey, before we get out of here, and I thank you and everything, Coach, a little bit of preview for next week. We're going to have a fellow on here, Coach Chris Ferguson. He's retired, a retired coach. He's actually from Hendersonville, but he coached over 30 years in Division I basketball all over the country. And, you know, his last 3 or 4 stops, he was at Virginia Tech, Tennessee, Oklahoma State. I think he closed his career out at UNC Charlotte. But Chris Ferguson's a man of God. Is going to be a wealth of knowledge next week on here. You don't want to miss that. But Coach Chris Ferguson will be here. And before I say goodbye to Coach, I just want to, once again, the most important thing in your life, everybody has this void they want to fill sometimes. And that void, what's missing, we already know the answer. I know Coach Frady knows this. Christ is what's missing in a lot of people. You know, Tom Brady said it best. He still doesn't understand. He said, hey, I've got all these Super Bowl rings. There's got to be more. And there is, and it's Christ. And if you don't have a personal relationship with him and you're watching this and you want to secure that, hey, you can message me on Facebook. You can get in touch with me. You can get in touch with Coach Frady at the school. We can walk you through those steps to secure your eternity. So I don't want to ever end this without offering that up. Coach Frady, thank you so much. It's been great having you on here tonight. It means a lot for you to take time out of your busy schedule with your family to come. I know that's a big deal to miss that much time, but it's for a great reason, and we appreciate it, Coach. Anything before we close out of here?
No, I once again, I appreciate you having me on. It's an awesome thing you're doing. This is weird times, like you say. I'm just now. I mean, I didn't know what Zoom was until this spring, for sure, and I'm sure you didn't either. And learning all this stuff, but it's going to be a great tool for people to reach a lot of people, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll pray us out, and then we'll see you back here live Monday night. Coach Chris Ferguson, dear Lord, we just want to raise up Coach Frady right now in his program at ENKA High School, dear Lord. We just pray that he keeps impacting those kids, his co-workers, dear Lord, that they can see you through him. And we lift up his family, his wonderful wife that, dear Lord, works so hard to keep that family going during his busy times. Dear Lord, just be with everyone watching this. And we pray that they would come into a relationship with you if they don't know you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Hey, thanks again, Coach. We'll see y'all next Monday night. Ravens and Chiefs tonight. Don't want to miss that. See
Sounds
you.
good. I'll see you.